The day you stop chasing is the day your soul stops bleeding. My friends, that's where this story begins. Not on the day they text you back, not on the day they finally say, "I miss you." It begins on the day you quietly say to yourself, "I am done running after people who walk away from me like I'm nothing." That's the moment you stop begging and start becoming. That's the moment you detach like a king. And when a king detaches, the whole game changes. They don't expect that. They think you'll chase forever. They think you'll keep proving your worth. But kings don't audition. They set the stage. Hey folks, imagine this. You're in a huge castle, and for some reason you've left your throne and you're sprinting down the hallway, chasing one person who keeps walking away, looking over their shoulder just to make sure you're still following. Every time they speed up, you speed up. Every time they slow down, so do you. You're breathless, stressed, confused, and here's the crazy part. Your throne is still there, empty, waiting. That's what chasing does. It takes a king off his throne and turns him into a background character in someone else's story. Detaching like a king is the moment you stop running after them and start walking back to your chair. You were taught a lie, my friends. The lie that the one who cares more loses. So you started believing that if you really like someone, you have to keep pushing, keep proving, keep performing. You were told that if you stop chasing, they'll forget you. But that's not the truth. The real truth is this. It's not the one who cares more that loses. It's the one who abandons himself to keep someone else comfortable. You don't lose when you love deeply. You lose when you love deeply and respect yourself lightly. There's a quote I love. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius said that. In our language today, it sounds like this. You don't control whether they stay or go, but you control whether you keep begging them to. That's real power. That's king energy. Not controlling them, but controlling yourself. Detach like a king doesn't mean you become cold, heartless, or toxic. This isn't block them to make them crazy energy. This is different. This is you saying, I feel everything, but I won't let my feelings make me chase where I'm not respected. It's like stepping out of a storm and realizing the roof you were trying to fix was never your house. You laugh a little, shake your head and say, wow, I really tried to make that mess my home. A little fun truth. Sometimes you're not heartbroken, you're just embarrassed you stayed that long, and that's okay. We've all been there. From today, we're breaking the script. No more running behind people who only move when they know you're chasing. No more checking if they saw your story like it's your daily blood pressure reading. No more using their replies to measure your worth. You're not a notification, you're a whole life. You're not a backup plan, you're the main character. The moment you remember that is the moment they start to feel the distance. And trust me, they will feel it. So stay with me, my friends. By the time we're done, you'll see why detaching like a king doesn't just make them chase you. It makes you untouchable in the best way. And I want you to lock this into your mind right now. Type this in the comments. I choose my crown. Write it, own it. Speak it over yourself. Don't forget to press like and subscribe, because your new life starts with one decision. You don't chase. You rise. Number 1. The biggest lie you learned about love. The deepest heartbreak isn't when they leave. It's when you realize how much of yourself you gave away just to make them stay. My friends, that's the wound most of you are actually carrying, not just the loss of a person, but the loss of yourself in the process of trying to keep them. Somewhere along the line, someone taught you a quiet, poisonous belief. The one who cares more loses. It slipped into your mind like a whisper and built a home there. So every time you felt real feelings for someone, you didn't feel blessed, you felt scared. You didn't think, wow, I care deeply. You thought, oh no, this means I'm about to lose. Hey folks, imagine this. You're at an auction, and instead of items on the stage, it's pieces of your heart. Your time, your patience, your loyalty, your late-night listening, your "Are you home safe?" texts. And you're standing there, hand always raised, bidding higher and higher for someone who just sits in the audience smirking, acting like they're doing you a favor by even showing up. You keep offering more of yourself, hoping they'll finally say, "Sold, I choose you." But they never do. They just keep watching what you're willing to give. That's what happens when you believe the lie. You don't love from strength. You bargain from fear. And the questions start to pile up in your head, don't they? If I stop texting first, will they forget I exist? If I don't chase, will they think I never cared? What if they move on to someone else who's willing to do more than me? These questions don't come from your heart. They come from your fear. Fear of being replaced, fear of being invisible, fear that maybe, deep down, you were never enough, and chasing is the only way to prove you are. There's another quote I want you to sit with. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca said that, and that's exactly how this lie works. You're not just reacting to what's happening, you're reacting to a whole movie in your head. A movie where the moment you stop chasing, they instantly find someone better. A movie where your value evaporates the second you stop proving it. You let an imaginary scene dictate your real behavior. Think about it. How many times have you kept a conversation alive that was already dead just because you were scared of what silence might reveal? How many times have you replied in seconds to someone who takes hours or days to respond just because you were afraid that matching their energy would make them disappear? How many times have you laughed off disrespect, swallowed your standards, ignored your gut, all because you believed that caring more automatically put you in a losing position? The lie works like this. It tells you that love is a power struggle, not a connection. It tells you that the less you care, the more you win. So you end up in situations where both people are scared to show their heart. But one person is secretly delighted that you're the one doing all the emotional heavy lifting. You take on the anxiety, the worry, the overthinking, while they take your effort for granted. That's not love. That's emotional slavery dressed up as romance. Here's the truth, my friends. Caring deeply has never been the problem. The problem is caring so deeply that you abandon yourself. You lose not because your heart is big, but because your boundaries are small. You don't lose because you love. You lose because you're willing to love at the cost of your self-respect. You place your crown in their hands and beg them not to drop it, instead of realizing it was never supposed to leave your head in the first place. Why is it so difficult to let go of this lie? Because you've built your identity around it. You've told yourself, I'm loyal, I don't give up easily, I fight for people. Beautiful traits when given to the right person, dangerous when misused. So when someone doesn't value you, your reaction isn't to walk away. Your reaction is to try harder. You think, if I just show them a little more, they'll see my worth. But all they see is that you're willing to stay where you're not honored. And people rarely respect what they can control so easily. It's like standing in front of a locked door, knocking harder, kicking, shouting, bleeding from your hands, while the key is in your own pocket. The door isn't your only way out. But the lie tells you, if you walk away from this door, you'll never find another one. So you stay, you wait, you suffer, you confuse persistence with purpose, you confuse tolerance with love, you confuse chasing with caring, and all the while you're shrinking. Here's another line to tattoo into your mind. The one who loses is not the one who cares more. It's the one who cares more about being chosen than about choosing himself. Read that again if you need to. You shouldn't be terrified of losing someone who clearly isn't afraid of losing you. You should be terrified of losing yourself while trying to keep them. Rising from this fear is not easy. I won't lie to you. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff and everyone is shouting, "Jump and you'll be alone forever." Your brain screams, "If I stop messaging, what if they never speak to me again?" But ask yourself honestly, if their connection to you depends on you constantly chasing, is it really a connection or just convenience? If your presence in their life is held up only by your effort, what happens if you get tired? You fall. They move on. And the lie tells you, "See, you should have tried harder." No, you should have left earlier. The first step to breaking this lie is simple but not soft. You admit that you were trained to fear being alone more than being disrespected. You admit that you were more scared of losing them than losing your own peace. And then you decide, quietly but firmly, that the cost is too high. You decide that from now on, you will not beg to be chosen. You will not audition for roles in hearts that don't know their own script. You will not keep lowering your price just because someone is shopping with a cheap budget. You will care, you will love, you will show up with heart. But you will also walk away when your soul is being taxed for someone else's comfort. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's not coldness, that's clarity. That's not losing. That's finally winning in the only game that matters, the one between you and the person in the mirror. So here's what I want you to do, my friends. I want you to make a small promise right now to yourself and to the world watching you. Type this in the comments and mean every word of it. I care deeply, but I won't abandon myself. Write it for them. Write it for you. Write it so the world around you knows that the old version of you, the one that is chased from fear, is not the one walking into the next chapter. Because this is just the beginning. If this is the lie we're breaking first, imagine what happens when we talk about what real detachment actually looks like. Stay with me. The next part will change the way you see every "I miss you" and every silence that ever scares you. Number 2. What detachment really means and why it's not a game. Detachment isn't "I don't care about you." It's "I care about me too." My friends, that one shift is where everything changes. Most people think detachment is some cold-hearted move, like flipping a switch and suddenly becoming a robot. They imagine you waking up one day like, "That's it, feelings off," and walking around like a statue. That's not real life. That's not what we're talking about. Real detachment isn't the death of your heart. It's the protection of it. Hey folks, imagine you're holding a rope. On the other side of that rope is someone you care about. At first, you're both holding it gently, balanced, connected. But slowly, they start pulling away, not walking away completely, just creating distance. Every time they feel insecure, they tug you closer. Every time they feel bored or confident, they slack off and drift. You, on the other hand, start gripping tighter. You feel the fear of losing them, so you cling. You pull when they pull away. You beg when they go quiet. Before you know it, your hands are burning, your muscles are shaking, and your entire life is about not letting go of that rope. That, my friends, is attachment. Detachment isn't dropping the rope and saying, "I never cared." It's loosening your grip and saying, "If this connection is meant to stay, it won't require me to bleed for it." The moment you hear detach, your mind probably panics a little. You might think, "But if I detach, won't I become cold? What if they think I never cared? What if detaching means I lose them forever?" Those questions don't make you weak. They make you human. You've been raised on a diet of movies, songs, and advice that says, if you love them, fight for them. Never stop trying. And that sounds noble, doesn't it? But nobody told you the fine print. Fighting for someone shouldn't mean fighting yourself. There's a quote that fits here perfectly. "He who is brave is free." Epictetus said that. In our language, it means this: the bravest thing you can do is risk losing someone instead of losing yourself. Detachment is that kind of bravery. Not noise, not drama, but a quiet decision. I refuse to let my emotions become my prison. It's not a game you play with them. It's a promise you make to you. Here's why it's so misunderstood. A lot of people online turned detachment into strategy. Go no contact for X days, don't watch their stories, ignore their messages, make them chase. That's not detachment. That's manipulation wearing a spiritual costume. You're still obsessed with what they do, still checking if your silence is working, still basing your mood on their reaction. You're not detached. You're just performing distance while your heart is still begging on the inside. Real detachment is the opposite of performance. It's quiet, simple, almost boring from the outside. It's you saying, "I can love you deeply and still walk away if this connection is destroying my peace." It's you feeling the urge to text them at 2 a.m. and instead talking to yourself like a friend, saying, "We're not doing that anymore. We've cried enough." It's you not stalking their every move because you've realized that whether they're happy without you or posting fake smiles isn't your business anymore. Your business is your healing. My friends, detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling that sting when you see their name. It means the sting doesn't control your behavior anymore. You still get waves of longing. You still replay memories. You still think, maybe if I had done this differently. But instead of using those thoughts as a reason to run back, you use them as a reason to go inward. You sit with the discomfort rather than escaping it. And that's hard. That's why most people never truly detach. It's easier to text them, easier to scroll their page, easier to chase a familiar pain than sit alone with a new freedom. Why is detaching so difficult? Because attachment feels like identity. You've tied so much of your value to how this one person responds to you that being without them feels like being without yourself. If they don't text, you feel ugly. If they're cold, you feel unworthy. If they seem happy with someone else, you feel replaceable. So your brain does the math. If I detach, I lose the only mirror I've been using to see myself. That's terrifying. No wonder you cling. But here's the lie we're breaking in this section. You are not your attachment. You are not their response to you. You are not the version of yourself that begged for their attention. That was a version of you operating from fear, not truth. Detachment is not you becoming less of you. It's you meeting the part of you that existed before them and will exist long after. Imagine again, folks, you're in a room full of mirrors, but all of them are distorted. Some make you look too small, some make you look broken, some make you look like a joke. You keep staring at one particular mirror, the one that represents how this person sees you. You try to stand in just the right angle to look okay in it. You fix your hair, your smile, your posture, just to please that one reflection. Detachment is the moment you step back and say, "This is not an accurate mirror," and you walk out of that room entirely, not to prove a point, not to get them to run after you, but because you're tired of living life based on a funhouse illusion. There's another quote I want you to remember. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. That's from Marcus Aurelius. You can't control if they text you. You can't control if they regret losing you. You can't control if they choose someone else. But you can control whether those things decide your worth. You can control whether your day is ruined because they viewed your story and didn't say anything. You can control whether you keep pouring attention into someone who only throws you crumbs when they're bored. Detachment is you reclaiming that control. It's you deciding that your emotions belong to you, no longer rented out to someone who doesn't pay in respect. You stop obsessively checking your phone, not because you're above feeling, but because you're tired of the emotional whiplash. You stop responding instantly, not to teach them a lesson, but because your life is finally full again. There are things to do, people to see, dreams to build. Suddenly their message is not the main event, it's just a notification. Will they notice? Yes. In ways you won't always see, they'll feel the difference in how you respond. They'll sense that you're no longer sitting there waiting. They'll feel that your energy has shifted from "please don't leave" to "you're free to go, I'm still good." And that shift unsettles people who were used to dancing on your emotions. But don't detach for their reaction. Detach because your peace is too precious to keep sacrificing. Sometimes detachment will look like not replying. Sometimes it will look like replying, but briefly and calmly. Sometimes it will look like finally saying, "This no longer works for me," and closing the chapter completely. The action is less important than the energy behind it. Are you doing it to trigger them, or are you doing it to honor you? That's the real question. You might ask, "But what if they think I don't care anymore?" My friend, if someone requires you to abandon your self-respect just so they can believe you care, that's not love. That's emotional blackmail. You can care and still choose distance. You can care and still say no. You can care and still walk away from what is killing your spirit. Your compassion for them should never cost you compassion for yourself. It will hurt. I won't sugarcoat that. Detachment feels like losing a limb at first because you've wrapped so much of your life around this person. Your mind will panic. Check their page. Just text them once. Just see if they're okay. And in those moments, you'll have to parent your own heart. You'll have to say, "We're not doing that. We're healing now. We're learning how to breathe without depending on their oxygen." This is where you grow. Not in the easy moments, but in the ones where the old patterns scream and you don't answer. Over time, something subtle and beautiful happens. The silence that felt like punishment starts to feel like sanctuary. The distance that once triggered your anxiety starts to protect your peace. You start to realize that you're not empty without them. You're spacious. You have room for your own thoughts, your own dreams, your own healing. You start to recognize how small you made yourself to fit into their world. And then the question flips from "how do I get them back" to "why would I want to go back to a version of me who didn't know their own worth?" That's the power of true detachment. It doesn't harden you, it refines you. It doesn't make you hate love. It makes you more selective about where you place it. It doesn't turn you into someone who doesn't care. It turns you into someone who cares with wisdom, not desperation. So, my friends, here's the affirmation I want you to claim right now. Not just think it, write it in the comments, show yourself, show the world around you that you're stepping into a new chapter. I detach to protect my peace. Say it again softly to yourself. I detach to protect my peace. This isn't a game. This is your life. And if this is what detachment truly means, imagine what happens when we start talking about how kings rebuild their kingdoms once they've finally stepped back from the chase. Stay with me. The next part will show you exactly what that looks like. Number 3. Crowns aren't worn in chaos. A king doesn't prove his power by shouting in every room. He proves it by refusing to step off his throne for chaos. My friends, that line cuts deep because most of us were never taught what real power looks like. We were trained to believe that if someone disrespects you, you have to argue. If someone misunderstands you, you have to explain. If someone pulls away, you have to chase. Somewhere along the way, reacting became your default. You measured your worth by how loudly you could fight for people who wouldn't even whisper for you. But real kings don't live like that. Real kings don't run into every fire just to prove they aren't afraid of getting burned. They understand something most people don't. Crowns don't survive chaos. Hey folks, imagine this. You're sitting in a quiet throne room. It's peaceful. The light is soft. You can think. You can breathe. You can see the bigger picture of your life. Then suddenly someone runs in and screams, "They're talking about you out there." Another person yells, "She's pulling away, do something." Another shouts, "He doesn't respect you, go fix it right now." Before you know it, you're sprinting out of your own throne room, armor half on, crown slipping, chasing every voice that calls your name. You're in the village arguing, defending, chasing, begging, proving, while your throne sits empty. That's what happens when you let chaos decide your position. You leave the place where your power is just to fight battles that don't even deserve your presence. And let's be honest, my friends, it feels almost wrong to step back, doesn't it? The questions show up fast in your mind. If I don't respond, will I look weak? If I don't defend myself, will they think they're right about me? If I don't chase when they pull away, will I lose them for good? These questions are loud, especially when your heart is involved. You've been taught that silence equals losing. You've been taught that walking away means you didn't care enough. You've been told real men fight, real men explain, real men prove. Nobody told you that sometimes real men sit down, breathe, and say, "This fight doesn't deserve my crown." There's a quote I love. "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Seneca said that. Now imagine how much of that time you've wasted arguing with people who already decided what they want to believe about you, chasing after someone who keeps you on the emotional treadmill, explaining your heart to someone who misuses every word you give them. That's time you could have spent building your kingdom, but instead you've been building their comfort. Chaos is seductive because it makes you feel important. When you're arguing, chasing, trying to fix things, you feel like you're doing something. You feel involved. You feel like you're fighting for love or fighting for clarity. But ask yourself honestly, what has all that fighting really given you? Peace or exhaustion? Respect or resentment? Has the chaos made your connection stronger or just made you weaker? When you live in constant reaction, you become easy to control. All someone has to do is pull away a little, and you panic. All they have to do is tone down their replies, and your mind spirals. All they have to do is hint they might leave, and suddenly you're bargaining, bending, begging. You're no longer a king in his castle. You're a guard, desperately watching the gate, terrified they might walk out. That's not love. That's emotional captivity. My friends, here's the truth. A king doesn't run after every person who threatens to leave the kingdom. He understands that anyone who is meant to stay, stays because of alignment, not manipulation. He doesn't step off his throne every time someone raises their voice. He doesn't respond to every message that feels like bait. He doesn't chase someone who needs his pain to feel powerful. Instead, he does what most people are too scared to do. He steps back and lets reality speak. But let's talk about why stepping back is so hard. It's because stepping back feels like letting go of control. You think, if I don't fix this right now, it'll fall apart. If I don't explain myself, they'll think the worst. If I don't respond, they'll just move on. You confuse your presence with their care. You assume the moment you detach, everything will collapse. The truth is, if everything falls apart just because you stopped overextending, it wasn't stable in the first place. Imagine a bridge, folks. A real solid bridge doesn't collapse just because one person stops holding onto it with their bare hands. If your relationship or connection only holds together when you're carrying all the weight, that's not a bridge. That's you being the floor. People walk on floors. They respect bridges. Stepping back also threatens your ego. Your ego says, you have to have the last word. You can't let them think they hurt you. You can't let them walk away without knowing how valuable you are. So you send that long message. You call, you explain, you rant. And every time you do, your ego gets a momentary hit of relief, but your soul gets a little more tired. Your crown slides a little lower each time you bow where you should have stood tall. There's another quote that fits perfectly here. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Marcus Aurelius said that. What if the real source of your suffering isn't that they pulled away, but that you believed pulling away automatically makes you unworthy? What if the pain is less about them and more about the story you tell yourself when they act distant? I must be boring. I must be unlovable. I must not be enough. Those stories are the real chaos, and you're running into that chaos every time you try to fix what's not yours to fix. Crowns aren't worn in chaos because chaos makes you forget who you are. You can't think clearly when you're constantly chasing a conversation, chasing validation, chasing closure. You can't see red flags when you're busy explaining why you deserve better treatment. You can't feel your own strength when your entire nervous system is wrapped around whether they text back. Chaos turns a king into a pawn. Stepping back, on the other hand, is terrifying and freeing. When you step back, you risk losing their attention. You risk being misunderstood. You risk being painted as the villain in their version of the story. But you also risk something beautiful. You risk meeting the version of yourself who doesn't live in fear anymore. The version of you who doesn't need to win every argument to know he's worth something. The version of you who doesn't chase love like it's the last glass of water in the desert. My friends, stepping back doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the right things, your peace, your mental health, your focus, your future. You start asking different questions. Is this worth my energy? Does this argument change anything? Does chasing this person make me more of myself or less? And when the answer keeps coming back as less, you sit down, you breathe, you adjust your crown. Picture this. Instead of running into every emotional fire, you become the calm center. They might message you with attitude. They might post things that are obviously meant for you. They might throw jabs, ghost you, come back, leave again. But you're not sprinting into the chaos anymore. You're not matching every move. You're not dancing on their ego's schedule. You respond when you want to, if it aligns. You don't respond when it doesn't. You let their actions say what their words won't. That's king behavior. Sometimes stepping back means people will claim you changed. They might say, you're different now, you don't care, you're cold. But the truth is, you didn't become colder. You became clearer. You didn't stop feeling. You stopped leaking. You're no longer handing out your emotional energy like free samples to people who spit it out and walk away. You're serving at your table, not begging to eat at theirs. Here's where it gets powerful. The moment you sit back on your throne, something starts shifting around you. People who are aligned with your new energy feel safer around you because you're not chaotic anymore. You're steady. You're grounded. People who were only there for drama, control, or ego games feel exposed because their usual hooks don't work. They can't bait you into long fights. They can't trigger you into chasing. They can't control your emotions with one cold message. Your silence becomes louder than your old reactions ever were. And yes, the person you pulled away from feels it too. They might not admit it, but they will sense that the version of you who once jumped at every breadcrumb is gone. They'll test it. They'll poke. They'll prod. They'll send a "hey" just to see. But you're not the same. You've learned that your peace is more important than their temporary attention. My friends, stepping back is not about proving a point to them. It's about proving something to yourself, that you are capable of choosing peace over panic, dignity over desperation, and clarity over chaos. It shows you that your value doesn't shrink because someone doesn't see it. It remains. It waits. It attracts what's meant for it. So here's the affirmation I want you to claim right now as a quiet declaration that you're done wearing your crown in the middle of other people's storms. Type it in the comments. Show yourself. Show the world around you. I choose my throne over their chaos. Say it out loud if you can. Let your own voice hear it. I choose my throne over their chaos. Because if this is what it means to step back like a king, imagine what happens when we start talking about what you actually do with that throne. How you rebuild, how you refocus, how you turn all that energy you once poured into chasing them, into building a life they could never replace. Stay with me, my friends. What's coming next will change the way you see your own power forever. Number 4. When you go quiet, their ego starts talking. They weren't afraid of losing you until your silence proved you were willing to lose them. My friends, that's the moment everything flips. Not when you send the long paragraph. Not when you pour your heart out one last time. Not when you cry, explain, or beg for them to understand you. The real shift happens in that quiet, almost invisible second when you stop reacting, when you don't rise to the bait, when you don't rush to fix the tension, when you go quiet, not as a trick, but as a decision. And that's when something wakes up inside them, not their heart at first, but their ego. Hey folks, imagine this. For the longest time, your emotions were like a light switch in their hands. Flick it up with a, "Hey stranger," and you light up instantly. Flick it down with silence or dry energy, and you dim, panic, chase. They knew exactly which buttons to press, which words to use, which moves to make when they wanted attention, reassurance, or a little ego boost. You became predictable, comfortably predictable. Then one day they flip the switch, and nothing happens. No reaction. No, what's wrong? No, did I do something? Just quiet. That's not nothing. That's an earthquake in their control system. At first, they don't feel fear. They feel surprise. Wait, did they not see it? Maybe they're busy. Maybe their phone died. The ego always begins with excuses that protect its sense of superiority. So they give it time. They post a story they know you'll see. They put a song in their caption that used to be your song. They send a neutral message, "How have you been?" and tell themselves it's casual. But underneath that casual, a curiosity that stings, because silence from someone who used to react fast never feels casual. Then the questions start, but this time on their side, the same questions that once haunted you. Did they move on? Are they talking to someone else? Did I push it too far? Did I miscalculate how much they needed me? My friends, this is what you never got to see when you were the one spinning. You thought they were calm, confident, unbothered. You thought your overthinking was a one-sided storm. But the truth is, silence doesn't just speak to you, it speaks to them too, and their ego does not like what it hears. There's a quote that fits perfectly here. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Seneca said that. That's exactly what begins to happen to them once you go quiet. Their imagination starts doing the work. The same way you used to invent scenarios about them thriving without you, now they're imagining you thriving without them. They picture you laughing with someone else. They picture you finally realizing your worth. They picture you no longer available on demand. Suddenly, the game isn't so fun anymore. You might think, but they're posting, they're laughing, they look happy, they act like they don't care. My friends, ego loves performance. It hates vulnerability. So, of course, they'll turn up the volume. They might post more stories, show more nights out, talk louder online. That's not peace. That's theatre. That's their ego saying, look at me, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, while their thoughts keep drifting back to the one variable that changed. You stopped playing your old role. When you go quiet, their ego starts hunting for answers. It rereads old chats, not because of nostalgia, but because it wants to confirm. Was I really that safe to them? Did I misread how much they cared? They might laugh it off to friends. Yeah, they've gone weird, or they're acting distant. But later, in the dark, scrolling alone, they feel a tension they can't shake. It's the tension of losing control. For someone who was used to pulling your strings, your silence feels like their own reflection finally talking back. Why is this so powerful? Because before your silence, they thought your emotions belonged to them. They could leave, come back, half commit, half care, and you'd still be there, emotionally available like a light left on in an empty room. Your silence turns that light off. And the ego doesn't just go, oh, okay, cool. No, it gets loud, it gets curious, it gets irritated. It needs confirmation that it still holds a place in your mind. That's when you start seeing those weird, random pings, the hey stranger, the reaction to a story you posted days ago, the laugh emoji on something that wasn't even funny. It's not about the content, it's about the test. Their ego is basically asking, do I still live in your head? And here's the part where many people fall back into the cycle, because when you see that message, your heart jumps. You think, they noticed, they care, they reached out. And maybe a part of them does care. They're human, but you have to be brutally honest. Are they reaching out from the heart or from bruised ego? Are they checking on you or checking if they still control you? There's another quote. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius said that. For a long time, your soul was dyed with thoughts like, I hope they text. I hope they miss me. I hope they regret losing me. That gave them unspoken power. When you go quiet, not as a tactic but as a commitment to your peace, your thoughts slowly change color. I hope I grow. I hope I heal. I hope I never reduce myself like that again. And even if you don't say it out loud, that shift in color is energy. People feel energy, especially the ones who are feeding off yours. But let's talk about why going quiet is so hard in the first place. It's not just habit, it's fear. When you stop reacting, a part of you whispers, what if this is it? What if they never come back? What if my silence doesn't bother them at all? You're scared that your quiet will confirm your worst nightmare, that you were always disposable. So instead of risking that answer, you keep reacting, keep chasing, keep talking, just to avoid facing the possibility that they could live without you. You hold yourself hostage to avoid feeling abandoned. The lie we break here is this. Silence does not create their feelings. It exposes them. If they truly never cared, your quiet didn't make that happen. It just revealed it faster. If they did care, your quiet doesn't erase it. It forces them to sit with it. Either way, your silence brings truth to the surface. You can fear that, or you can respect it. That's the difference between living as a prisoner of their potential and living as a protector of your own peace. My friends, when you go quiet, you also start to hear something you couldn't hear before, your own voice, the one that says, I was tired, I was overgiving, I was begging in ways I never want to beg again. In the beginning, their ego is the loud one trying to pull you back into the dance. But if you stay quiet long enough, not as punishment but as healing, something shifts. Their ego might get noisier. yours gets calmer, and eventually, the only voice you obey is the one that says, "I deserve emotional respect." Their ego will try different tricks. If the friendly "hey" doesn't pull you back, they might try a slightly emotional angle. "I've been thinking about you. I miss the old us." If that doesn't work, they might try to trigger jealousy. New faces in their stories, subtle digs that you know are aimed at you. You might see something and feel your chest tighten. That's normal. You're human. But you remind yourself, this is ego theater. Mine or theirs, it doesn't matter. I'm not buying tickets anymore. When you don't bite, when you don't rush to react, something else happens. Slowly, their ego starts facing what your ego had to face first. Maybe I wasn't as in control as I thought. Maybe they're not waiting this time. Maybe I misjudged their strength. And that realization hurts. Not because they suddenly discovered your worth, you were always worthy, but because their sense of dominance begins to crack. They have to look at themselves for once, instead of using you as a distraction from their own work. That's why your silence is more effective than any lecture, any rant, any dramatic goodbye speech. Words give them something to argue with. Silence gives them nothing to grab. Words let them twist, deny, deflect. Silence forces them to sit with themselves. They can't twist an absence. They can't gaslight a void. Your lack of response becomes a mirror they can't easily break. Now, does this guarantee they'll come running back, fully healed, fully changed, ready to worship the ground you walk on? No, my friends. Stoicism is about truth, not fairy tales. Sometimes they will come back with ego still leading, just smarter this time. Sometimes they'll come back halfway, dipping their toes in, seeing if your emotions are still for sale. Sometimes they won't come back at all. But here's the point. Going quiet was never about guaranteeing their return. It was about guaranteeing your return to yourself. The real win is not them reappearing. It's you not collapsing when they do. It's you reading their "I miss you" and not instantly forgetting the months they made you question your own worth. It's you seeing their name pop up and feeling neutral, curious maybe, compassionate even, but no longer desperate, no longer willing to trade your peace for their presence. And that right there is what their ego didn't see coming. They expected your silence to be temporary anger, temporary hurt. They counted on you breaking first, the old you always did. This time, your quiet isn't a tantrum, it's a transformation. You're not ignoring them to punish them, you're honoring your own growth. That's a different frequency, and that's the one they remember long after the noise fades. So, my friends, if you're in that phase right now, where you've gone quiet and you're wondering what's happening on their side, understand this. Something is happening, even if you never see it. Your silence shifted the story. For them, but more importantly, for you. You're not the same person who used to react to every breadcrumb. You're becoming someone who understands that not every knock on your emotional door deserves to be answered. I want you to claim this shift out loud. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you understand what your silence truly means now. Type this in the comments. My silence is my power. Not my game. Not my weapon. My power. Let that sink into your mind and into your body. Because if this is what happens when you go quiet, when their ego starts talking and your soul starts waking up, imagine what comes next when we shift fully into emotional control, when you're no longer moved by every message, every mood, every move they make. Stay with me, my friends. The next part will show you exactly how to protect that power you've just discovered. Sometimes they don't realize they lost the whole meal until the crumbs walk away. My friends, that's where this story begins. This video is for you if someone treated you like a side option, gave you the bare minimum, acted like you should be grateful for their scraps, and then looked shocked when you finally disappeared. They thought you'd always be there. They thought your patience was endless. They thought their ego was safe. It wasn't. Because the moment you walked away, the collapse quietly began. Before we go any deeper, do me a quick favor. If you've ever felt like someone gave you crumbs and called it love, press that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. It helps this message reach more people who need it. And trust me, what we're about to unpack might just flip a switch in your mind you can't unsee. Hey folks, imagine this. You're at a huge table. On your side, your plate is full. Loyalty, effort, late-night talks, forgiveness, understanding. You're serving them a 5-star emotional meal. On their side, they're flicking crumbs in your direction like they're feeding pigeons in a park. A half-hearted sorry, a lazy, you know how I am, a quick, I've just been busy, that somehow never stops them from texting other people back. And every time they toss a crumb, they expect you to light up like they just gave you the world. That's not love, that's rationing. There's a quote I love. Never beg for what you bring to the table. Let that sink in, because some of you have been begging for attention from someone who should have been thanking you for staying as long as you did. They made you feel too sensitive, too emotional, too demanding just because you wanted basic things, a reply, some respect, a bit of consistency. They weren't giving you less because you're hard to love. They were giving you less because that's all their emotional laziness was willing to offer. And here's the lie they sold you. That's just how I am. No, my friends, that's not personality, that's priority. The truth is, people know how to show up when what they want is on the line. They're never too busy to chase what feeds their ego. They're only too busy when it's time to honor your heart. Deep down, you felt this. That tight feeling in your chest when they cancelled again. That sinking moment when you saw them active online. But your message still sat there, unread. You knew, but you kept giving them another chance, and another, until your soul started to feel tired of hearing your own excuses. And then one day, you didn't explode. You didn't send a long essay. You didn't fight. You didn't beg. You just went quiet. You logged off from the circus. You walked out of the restaurant where you'd been serving love on gold plates to someone who kept tossing you crumbs on paper napkins. They thought your silence was nothing. They thought, they'll be back. They always come back. They didn't realize your silence wasn't a mood. It was a decision. Mark this. Your disappearance is not drama. It's self-respect. Stoicism isn't about becoming a cold robot. It's about saying, my peace is more important than your mixed signals. It's smiling, sipping your coffee and thinking, I'm not angry. I'm just done renting my heart to chaos. And yes, we can laugh a little at it too, because if you think about it, some of the people who acted like you were too much are somewhere right now wondering why life suddenly feels so empty without too much you in it. In this video, I'm going to show you how their ego quietly collapses when the crumbs no longer work, and how your life actually starts the moment you stop chasing the bare minimum. Stay with me, because I want you to walk away from this not just understanding what happened to them, but fully realizing what's waking up inside you. Right now, tell yourself a new truth. Type this in the comments so it sinks in. I choose peace. Hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed, and stay with me, because your story does not end with their crumbs. It begins with your calm.